Good morning everyone and welcome to a new video. I'm kind of huddled in front of our camper because it's very windy today and I wanted the sound to be better than last week. All the babies are coming over. In today's video I want to show you guys two things. The first being that we've been busy cleaning the olive field. Our field was not used for about 30 years, which meant that the bushes were about as high as the olive trees. That kind of meant that it created a moist climate, which in turn meant that there was a lot of lichen on the tree. I'll show you one of those trees in a second. So the trees were not too happy, so we've cut down most of the bushes. We're now moving them all into rows so that we have room to walk. And then the next part is to prune the olive trees. So what we're doing is we're cutting off all the branches that have died. A lot of them have a lot of lichen on them. And then some of the branches that are a little bit more on the fence, we kind of pick the lichen off by hand because even though Google says that it's not bad for the tree, you can really see a difference and it just looks nicer if it's not on there. So that's our action plan, and that's what I'll show you in a little bit. In the second half of this video I want to talk to you about what being off-grid means to us. We have some solar panels and some of our appliances work on gas, and I'll show you that in the second half of this video. So if you're interested in that, please keep on watching. So this is where we've been working on the trees this week. You can see that the bushes are coming down, and we've pruned most of the trees in these two rows. It's not yet a nice field of grass with some luscious olive trees, but it'll be like that in about 2 years hopefully. Getting a property like this means that you have to have patience, so we just work a little bit every day and make it better. This is a good example of trees, of the olive trees, how we find them once we've cleared the bushes. This one doesn't have many suckers, but as you can see there's a lot of lichen there. Let me just take a step closer. So pretty much this whole branch is dead. So I'm gonna take that off and then prune it, and then it can start to recover. So this is the end result for this tree. Pruning really helps to encourage new growth, and as with any fruit tree, fruit actually grows on the new growth. So in 2 or 3 years there'll be lots of olives on this tree. It might not look like much, but we've seen people around the area doing it, and it really helps. Please note that I'm no expert. I just looked up some videos on YouTube. We're just learning as we go. We have no intention of becoming actual big-time olive farmers. This is mostly for our own use. I think in total we might have 80 to 100 trees, and that's enough for our own olive oil needs and eating meat, and maybe a little bit of selling. I also shot some footage of doing the rest of our field, what we've been doing this week, so I'll insert that here. And then, as I said, in the next half of this video I'll talk about how we are off-grid and what that means to us, and our plans for the future. This is the top of our camper van. We have 2 solar panels which are 150 watt each, and then yeah, they were about the biggest ones that we could buy and still fit on the roof of our camper van. And then we just have a small battery inside, which is just enough to run some lights and charge our laptop and things. So one adjustment that we had to make recently is that we had to adjust their angle. So where you can see now that they're lifted up, they used to be stuck to the roof of the camper. But because it's winter time now, we have to be more thoughtful of which angle they are so they can get the most sunlight. So that's a little project that we had to do. The next day we were really busy yesterday with cleaning the field, and then it's been getting dark really early, so the evening just kind of sneaks up on you about 5:15, 5:30. It's dark and then you can't do anything. So as I said, in the second half I want to talk to you about what our off-grid system is right now, what you kind of have to think about if you want to do the same. And what our plans are for the future. So when you go off grid, you kind of have to think about a lot more things than when you're just renting an apartment in the city. So you have to think about water, you have to think about gas, you have to think about how you're going to cook, about electricity, what's your toilet setup. So here in the area there are fonts in most of the towns where you can get water. It's not always drinkable. But if it's checked, then they check it every month to see if it's safe, or every 2 weeks even. So right now we're getting our water from one of those places in town, and a lot of people from town actually get their drinking water from there as well, because they like it much better than the water that you get through your faucet in the kitchen. So it's safe to drink and it's good water, but we have to go about twice a week. And we have to be really careful with how much water we use, because we don't want to go every day. So that's kind of a pain right now, but as you saw in a couple videos ago, we cleaned our well. It's been about 6 weeks to 2 months, I think. But the water's still not coming up, so we have to kind of wait for the water level to rise, the groundwater level. Once the well is filled up again, we can use that for washing dishes and for showering and whatever. And then we're also gonna test if we can filter it to make it drinking water. Next to that, we because it's so dry here in Portugal, we want to have many sources of water. So later this winter we're gonna build a rain catchment system. We're gonna build a roof on something higher than where the yurt is gonna be, and then just let that fill up a couple tanks of rainwater, and then we could also filter that for drinking water. Right now we cook on propane and our fridge runs on propane, which is actually quite common for a lot of camper vans and for campers and caravans and stuff. It's pretty efficient. If we just use the fridge in there, we can use it for 6 to 8 weeks without getting a new one. So that's been really good, but in the future, in a couple months, we want to set up a bigger solar system next to the yurt with enough battery life so that we can also run a fridge and a washing machine on there. So in the future we don't have to use gas for that anymore. One of the biggest challenges when you go off grid is finding a sustainable way to cook. And what I see a lot of people do just by default, because it's the easiest, they continue cooking on gas, and that's what we're doing right now as well. In the winter we hope to cook more on the wood stove, and the one that we got for the yurt is quite big and also has an oven, so that's going to be really good. We're going to do some baking again, but in the future maybe we'll get a solar oven or something like that, so we can also cook without gas in the summer. But that's really something we'll have to see and kind of feel, and what works and what's convenient enough still that we don't have to use propane. Heating is what you can see behind me here. It's gonna be wood for now. When you're in a system like this, I think wood is actually one of the most sustainable ways to do it. We have so many pine trees that need to come down on our property that we can have our own source of wood for the coming 5 to 10 years, I think. And then in the future we'll have to see how we're gonna set that up. But buying wood is about, I think you can get enough wood for the whole winter for about €100. So that's also not that big of an investment if you compare it to the bills that we used to have in the city. Then finally what we have set up for a toilet is just a really simple composting toilet with a bucket and some wood chips. You mix the poo with the wood chips, and then you can, once it's full, we have a big pile that's gonna where we let it compost for about a year and a half, and then that's really good compost for the trees. It's not usable for your kitchen garden, so we're not gonna put it in between the lettuce, but on our apple trees and on our new fruit trees that we're gonna get, it's really good compost, we've heard. The little system as we have set it up right now, it's good to think about it beforehand, all the different like aspects you need to live and how you're gonna do them. But we, as I just said, we hope to expand it in the future. So we hope to get a bigger solar system. We're gonna set up different ways of catching water and keeping water on the property. We're gonna do that in the coming months, so I'll show you while we're doing that and how we're setting it up. I hope that was a little bit informative, and that's it for now, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.